Hello, Future Tribe. Welcome to another Future Tribe show. This week's episode's got a bunch of articles to talk about, news items. Um, this is episode 81 of the podcast, so we're getting to 100 pretty quickly, which I'm excited for. But what we're talking about this week includes brand trust falling for Meta or Facebook, whatever you want to call them. Gaming launched on Netflix, and TikTok is experimenting with games as well. Instagram's rolled out more features again. I'm not sure why there's this onslaught of Instagram features, but I feel like we've been talking about new Instagram features for the last weeks.
Just
So
week after week after week. Yep.
yeah, what else are we talking about, Kelsey?
So we'll also be discussing YouTube removing their dislike count. Facebook is making changes to their advertising targeting. We'll be talking about what we can learn with Coca Cola's changed marketing strategy. And Australia has been crowned the most active online retail market in the world.
That's yeah, a lot to talk about, different angles, different things, lots of variety this week's episode. So let's roll the intro and get into it. Okay, I don't know about you, but I'm still not used to calling the whole company Meta. Um,
Yeah.
I'm also not surprised that trust in the brand fell after the name change. For me, the big reason that it comes as no surprise is that I think they almost highlighted that they've been doing questionable things, and people who I would argue that people who've never really been into Facebook to that extent that they, are across all the bad things that Facebook do, have suddenly realized what they do, because traditional news, traditional media's just covered the brand change and highlighted the fact that Facebook's such an awful company. I feel like I'm in the space. I hear about, all the bad things that Facebook does, or all the things that Facebook does, but I definitely feel like over the last few weeks, I've heard more about how bad Facebook is than ever before, even with all the Netflix documentaries and all that going around. So the some stats have shown that essentially the trust around the name Meta or the brand Meta has gone down to 6.2%, down from around 16%. There's a brand, something called Harris Brand Platform. I've never heard of them before. So take it with, I guess, a grain of salt, in the same way that you would take, the polls that run in terms of, which political party is leading or who's most favoured. But still not a surprising thing to hear about. What do you think, Kelsey?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I think we talked about it when it all came up, and you sort of mentioned that they're trying to distract everyone from what's going on, and it's clearly backfired on them because, as you said, yeah, the trust has fallen. It's, I guess, just an interesting conversation that could go on in a whole different realm about what you need to do to build trust in your brand, what to do, what not to do, when's the right time to make changes like this. Did they need to make the change and take that hit of losing that brand trust to then begin rebuilding it? Had they been putting it off for a while? There's a lot of questions that could come up around it, but just thought it was an interesting one to note.
I don't know that they thought that it would backfire at all. I think they probably thought that we're unveiling a whole new brand. Everyone's going to be excited, so on and so forth.
Distract them with dazzling lights and hope for the best.
Exactly. But what's
Mm.
interesting? The metaverse terminology has really picked up.
I
One
have been
of
seeing it
the
everywhere.
everywhere, right? I mean, even a chip manufacturer, I think it was
Mm.
Snapdragon, announced that they're releasing chips for, with the metaverse in mind. I mean, all they're saying there when they say the metaverse in mind is that they're building chips that are meant for a new type of hardware, a new type of wearable technology. That's all they're saying, but they're using the term metaverse. And I think maybe it's a sign of genius, quote unquote genius, or marketing genius, that they decided to brand themselves as Meta, because if metaverse as a terminology catches on, they're going to become, the Google for searching.
Yeah,
Because
very true.
how can you say metaverse without saying meta?
Yeah, I think I saw something the other day and it was about buying up parts of the metaverse or like mining for the metaverse. It was a headline I saw and I didn't really read into it. I probably should have so I could talk about it better now. But it was just an interesting thought that I'd come across because it was like Bitcoin when that started, like mining for Bitcoin, and all of those concepts are such odd concepts to people that are, I mean, for me, I'm very much in the literal world of mining, you dig a hole in the ground. Mining in the metaverse or buying up parts of the metaverse, it's like, does this thing actually exist? Is it just something people are making up? It's, I don't know, crazy concept to me, but it will be interesting to follow it and start to understand it more as it develops into whatever people think it already is.
It's also like, how things tend to sort of come back full circle. Wasn't there, was it Second Life or a platform like that where you can like build out in a virtual world? It's almost
Yeah,
like we're sort of back to that.
but just a much more advanced version, I think, because back in the day,
Yeah,
wasn't it just like click around on your computer kind of thing?
yeah, yeah. So it was much less integrated, but I think now we're getting to a stage where the line between the virtual world and the real worlds. I mean, Facebook's straight out just saying that they're working to blur that. And yeah, I wonder how the purchasing of the metaverse would work, because it's sort of like talking about purchasing parts of the internet which isn't really a thing in sort of the true sense of the word, because and then you would think that it's the same when it comes to the metaverse, because it's all limited by like servers and things like that. So if you own a server, you technically own part of the internet, maybe, but
Who
um,
knows?
it's a bit messy. Then again, I would say that all this confusion around it as well is probably an opportunity for people with, let's just say, not so great or undesirables. Could be, selling people on, oh, you can buy bits of the metaverse and capitalize on that hype. Like it's
Yeah.
happened with crypto. Why wouldn't it
Mm.
happen with the metaverse? I almost called it the internet. It's the same. Well, I don't know. I don't know the difference anymore.
Yeah.
Jumping from talking about the blurring into gaming, which I think will have a huge, well, the metaverse and all those devices will have a huge impact into the gaming world. But could that be why Netflix is launching gaming or games and gaming apps on their software?
Yeah, it's an interesting one again. I noticed, well, I'd been seeing things about it popping up, different articles and things, and then I went onto my Netflix app on my phone the other day and it was finally available there as the games tab. And there's sort of 5 or 6 games. You go into them and I think you then have to download all of the content for those games to be able to play it. And it was just kind of a weird experience because it was almost like, I mean, for me, I use Android. To get games on Android, I have to go to the App Store and I'll download that. Now I've got an app which I've downloaded from the App Store, where I then have to download further games within another app. And I don't really understand why. And it kind of feels like what Facebook did how many years ago, where they had games on the platform, and they might still have that, but it was a big thing where actually everyone was actually using it. And I don't know that they have it now. It's definitely not popular if they do. But it's almost as if Netflix and TikTok are experimenting with games, which is one of the next things we'll talk about. It's kind of all the same thing. It's as if they're trying to follow that path, and I don't really know why. I mean, I don't think I can see myself playing games on the Netflix app. I go to Netflix to watch my Netflix. I don't really go on there to spend time playing little handheld games. So I don't know.
It could maybe be that Netflix is just trying to diversify. Like, it's at one point it was weird that Facebook had Messenger as a separate app. Now you can download Messenger and have Messenger but not have Facebook.
Mm.
Um, and I think that's a question around how much companies choose to separate the main app from other apps and vice versa, because marketplace, Facebook Marketplace could very much be a standalone Gumtree and eBay competitor. Groups could be their own app. So it's weird that I think Netflix. So I'm not sure. You're probably not across the whole thing around Apple and Apple's commission structure and how they force apps on iPads and or on Apple devices to go through Apple's payment system, and they take a commission cut. So there's this whole conversation going on there, and essentially what Apple does at the moment is force in-app purchases to go through Apple's system. So you can't send, like Netflix wouldn't be able to send you away to Netflix's website to purchase a game. And I feel like maybe remnants of that, or for ease of development with the initial app, they've just pushed the same functionality across Android and the Apple ecosystem, which for us meaning people in the Android side of things, we're used to a lot more freedom. We're used to being able to literally download an app from the internet and install it on our phone, which isn't something that you can do on iPhones. So there is a difference, I think, and that difference, the ecosystem difference, is something that Netflix has to balance for. But then again, jumping into games, Netflix is probably just looking at being an entertainment company. That's
Mhm.
that's the best way to see it, right? TikTok, again, you mentioned TikTok, and getting into gaming. That's what TikTok is. TikTok's not social media; it's entertainment.
Yeah.
How many? I know you're on TikTok, aren't you, Kelsey?
Yeah. I started on there during lockdown, I think it was. I was like, I'm not going to do this, but then now I'm addicted.
Do you socialize on there, or do you just
I don't really even
consume?
have like an account. I literally just scroll. I don't think I really like anything or interact with anything. I just scroll.
Right. So very
Mm.
much consumption,
Yeah.
not interaction. So it makes sense. And to say, obviously the same thing with Netflix. Like Netflix, as far as I'm aware, has no social sort of connection side of things. So they're really just an entertainment company. And as long as they can deliver entertainment to you, which is at this stage just videos and games, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if music eventually became a thing, but that would only be because I would say Netflix has run out of the total addressable market, or sort of consumed the whole market, and they want to get into music's just notoriously difficult to play in because
Hmm.
the margins are very fine. There's not a lot of money to be made. But Netflix would go down that road. I'm betting right now, once they've addressed, as much of the market around gaming and videos as they can, because by now, like, everyone who's going to get Netflix has got Netflix, I would argue. I don't see
Mm.
why.
I mean, there's younger generations that are always growing and can choose
Yeah,
then to have their own Netflix account. But
that's
that's a
always going to
time
happen,
thing.
but exactly, like, we're talking about right now.
Hmm.
Why, apart from not having the internet, why wouldn't someone be on Netflix? Why wouldn't someone have Facebook? Cost is the only other factor. So you just give them other reasons, or because they don't consume video. Like, I would imagine there's a certain demographic that spends a lot more time gaming than watching TV shows.
Hmm.
So Netflix just gets to go, diversify and get into those markets as well. And probably, like, from a infrastructure technical sort of capability point of view, doesn't make a difference for them whether they're delivering video files or gaming files or game files. So I could see it very much translating over. um, TikTok, jumping into it, they've announced that they're actually working together with Zynga, which
Hmm.
is good because I actually have some Zynga shares, and they've been going down. Um, but I think I've lost money on those Zynga shares so far.
Hmm.
But
Maybe
it's
this
good
will
news
pick
for
them
me
back
at
up.
least.
Yeah.
Have you read much about what they're gonna like, what shape and form these
No, so I'm not sure that
games
they've
are gonna take?
announced too much just yet. I sort of put it in there just as an add-on to the Netflix thing because it sounds like a very similar product that they're going to be offering, where it's in-app and it's another tab or whatever, however that looks, but it's just within the app and the platform they've already built. I think they talk about HTML5 within this, which is just a low, I don't know what the right word is, low capacity kind of gaming platform. It's
Yeah,
just
well, it's a
easier for
different
people with lower internet speeds and things like that to access.
and lower barrier to entry as well,
Mm-hmm.
because you're no longer talking about having super powerful systems, and it's sort of again democratizing the development of games, because that's one area like they've done it with websites, they've done it with music, but I think games are still an area where no one's quite found the formula to make it
Yeah.
like, you and I think it's fair to say that if we had to make our own bit of music, we'd have a general idea of how we might go about that. But
Mm-hmm.
I would say with gaming, that's still not the case. So
Yeah. I was just thinking about Snapchat. And Snapchat is such a funny one. We've talked about it a few times in the past few episodes. Snapchat definitely had a gaming side to the offering for quite some time where you could start a game within the sort of filters that would pop up and play that back and forth with your friends. And I feel like that's almost an early iteration that these other apps, as usual, are stealing from Snapchat a little bit, but actually just making it better and doing it well. Whereas Snapchat seems to have all these awesome ideas that they're just not executing on and not capitalizing on, that are then, yeah, being snapped up by people like TikTok and Instagram. Maybe they'll make a better go of it, make it more social, make it better. TikTok accounts might be able to contribute and build their own games. I don't
I
know what that
think,
will
I
look
mean,
like.
Snapchat just hasn't had the market share, I think, or the volume to really push an idea out there that like catches on.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas TikTok's huge. All these other platforms, especially Facebook, to me, it was just that they had the sheer volume, they had the sheer size to do what Snapchat couldn't, and that was to get a lot more people using the games or the apps or whatever else it is. And sorry, I should have said Meta, because there were a lot of Instagram features that were stolen from Snapchat.
Mm-hmm.
But speaking of which, Instagram's launched a take a break
Yeah, they're just rolling
feature.
out features like crazy at the moment. I feel like every single week when I'm looking for articles and things to discuss, I come across something new from Instagram, and at the same time I see it, the same day it's released on my phone, and I start seeing it popping up everywhere. So, like the stickers in the last few weeks and the partnered posts are two big things that I keep seeing everywhere. Now they're rolling out a take a break feature. So that's coming out in December, and it's essentially something you have to opt into that you can tell Instagram, I'm taking a break, because you sort of hear all these people talking about having hiatus from Facebook, social media to detox and all that sort of stuff. So I guess this is Instagram's way of saying, yeah, sure, have a break, but just don't deactivate your account. Stick with us. Come back when you're ready, and trying to hold on to users in that way. So it's almost like, releasing the rope a little bit and giving them that freedom they need, but not losing them completely. So
What
it's
I love is the whole digital well-being side of things that I think Android's baked into the latest iteration. I believe iOS has as well, and now Instagram, where they're essentially going, let us come up with a way to make this as addictive as possible, and then let's introduce a feature to help you curb your addiction
yeah.
and take
But in a
take
way
a
that they
break.
can control it and they can keep you in the world and they don't lose you as a user. Because I
Oh
think that's the
man.
core part of what this take a break feature will be. Like, I think it will be great for users because they will be able to do what they're trying to do in a way that will sort of lock them out, I guess. But it also, yeah, is good for Instagram because they're not losing people who deactivate and then go, hey, this is great. I don't need to do this anymore, and are gone forever.
Yeah, well, it brings you come back. It's sort of like that classic you know, uh conversation going, okay, you're not interested right now, but let me check you back in a month and see if you want to,
Yeah.
buy a new car then, or whatever else it may be. But Instagram's also added two new features to Reels, which is they've
Hmm.
added text to speech and voice effects, which seems like they've just taken it out of
TikTok.
TikTok.
Honestly, I think at this point, Instagram's really trying to compete on Reels, and they can't
Well, on
compete.
video, right?
Yeah, in video. So they're really just stealing all these features that TikTok is innovating, putting it into their platform. But until Instagram actually starts innovating their own features, they're not going to be able to compete properly with TikTok because they're just getting the same features 2 to 3 months afterwards, and they are getting faster with it. They're adding these things in quicker than they have previously, but they're still behind. And you're still seeing recycled TikToks on Instagram rather than Instagram built um, content.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure Instagram hates that.
Hmm.
Um, and well, it's for worse, but this is one thing that Meta's going to be able to do is that they've got the volume and the money probably to just, um, like you said, shorten the time gap between when a competitor announces and launches a feature and they do the same.
Hmm.
It reminds me as well, like that share a photo of your pet thing that sort of went
Yeah,
around.
yeah.
Have you sort of seen much about that? It's interesting.
So yeah, I think it got to, I want to say 5 or 6 million kind of reshares or reposts, whatever the classification is for that particular sticker. And then there was all this controversy about like who actually posted it. Nobody knows. Instagram didn't have the ability to, I guess, release that transparency, which they discussed that they
Well,
were going
there's
to
a
be building
bug
in.
apparently. Apparently, there's a
Well,
bug that caused the initial. So from what I've seen, there was a page with about 1 million followers that claimed ownership over it, but apparently
mhm.
they launched it and then within 10 minutes they deleted it because they realized that it was going to take off and they couldn't
Yeah,
actually, you know, what
you
was
couldn't
it?
actually remove the feed, I guess.
Yeah, but what were they promising? A plant
Plant a tree for
per,
every pet picture.
yeah, which
Yeah,
is
which when you get to six
it's not
million,
possible.
it's not going to
No.
happen. And I'm pretty sure because I think I might have seen similar stuff about that, and it was an Australian company in Sydney or something who tried to claim it. But then there was all these reports that that was a scam company, and they'd sort of in the past done all these different competitions that are really unethical, where they'd post whatever it was, and people would donate to particular causes. But there was some clause in there where essentially, unless they ticked a particular box or specified something, the money that was donated actually half it went to the organization or the company, and the other part either didn't make it to the organization or only part of it did. So there was like a lot of ethical weird stuff around that particular company. So I think that that was a bit of a mess. And I don't know that they were actually the original people that made it. I'd heard that sort of 10-minute upload deleted, whatever. And then, yeah, Instagram also discussed that they realized there wasn't transparency around who posted the original sticker. And obviously, that was the one that took off. So they're working on things to increase that transparency. So a very quick best practice lesson, I think, for them to adjust that offering. It'll be interesting to see what sort of other stuff is coming up because I saw a sticker the other day that was something about for every pet picture, we'll give a wedgie to Scott Morrison, for example. So there's definitely
Yes,
some
it's funny.
controversial ones popping up around that. Mm.
Yeah, yeah, and I reckon that we're just going to see more of that moving forward with this because it's almost like because these companies have run out of or have essentially reached as many people again. I would argue that are going to interact, so they need to find new things to bring you back and new things to keep you more or less addicted to these apps, and it
Yeah.
works, right? It just works.
Yeah.
So we'll just have to wait and see.
Hmm.
Jumping to YouTube removing their dislike count. What are your thoughts? What do you
I always thought it was really interesting that YouTube had a dislike count because it's
in the
sort
first
of,
place?
yeah, I feel like it was the kind of thing that created almost a mob mentality when there was something that people didn't like. I think when it comes to, I mean, this was a reason why Facebook never introduced the dislike button. They always just had a like and then introduced other reactions. Because as soon as you introduce that dislike and it's a really clear, I don't like this, I'm not happy, I'm angry, whatever it is, it creates that mob mentality where people kind of jump on it and go, oh, people don't like this. I also don't like this. And then there can be a lot of hostility and negativity around that. And then I think it gets reflected in the comments as well. So I think it's a really positive move to remove that without actually removing the option to say that users dislike something. So I think the people who are genuinely angry about something can get it off their chest and say, yeah, I dislike it, but you can't actually see how many people dislike it. So I think it's really positive.
I don't know that even the number of likes, I don't know that matters. If all, I guess, maybe they could represent it visually, like have a little bar and, the further down either way, which is still sort of showing dislike and like ratios. But I can see the benefit for or towards the algorithm and the algorithm sort of picking it up. Though I've heard that doesn't matter what sort of reaction, any reaction, whether a like or dislike, is picked up by the algorithm, which makes sense because YouTube, like all these platforms want more interaction. So anything that generates more interaction or discussion is going to be favored. I did watch a video from YouTuber MKBHD. He's huge. You've all probably, if you're on YouTube, you've heard of him, saying that he disliked the removal of the dislike button. And his claim though was around that it gives you an idea of whether that video is good or bad, or whether like the video is something that you should watch. And his argument was that if you're looking for say a review of something, that just by looking at the like to dislike ratio you can quickly see whether it's good or bad. But I've never consumed YouTube in that way. I've looked at the comments more than anything else, but even then you sort of, I don't know that you go to YouTube to look at everyone else's thoughts around something. I feel like Reddit is potentially more of a platform for that, where YouTube's really around the content that you're viewing and your thoughts on the content itself rather than the subject matter of that content. He had a 10-minute spiel about this, so he's like, he clearly feels a very specific way about it.
I can understand the perspective, but I also feel like if you're going to reviews and things, who are these random people to say it's a bad video? Why should that be dictating if you're watching something? If you start watching it and you're enjoying it, continue watching it. If you're not, go elsewhere. It shouldn't be a case of looking at the likes and dislikes to see if it's worth your time watching. That seems like an odd metric. On the other hand, though, it's how review pages work for restaurants and things. If it's got good reviews, that's how you base your decision most of the time.
Well, that's correct, but there's a lot more to lose with a bad restaurant than a bad video. That's what I don't understand. There are not. I can't think of many other things that I necessarily turn to look at someone else's thoughts before, like in general, and make it like I wouldn't necessarily, if someone like Kanye has been releasing a lot of music recently and I just haven't sort of listened to it, but if someone said, oh, it's a bad album, I don't necessarily think that I would say, okay, you think it's a bad album,
won't listen.
I won't bother listen to it. Exactly.
You sort of go, oh, I better go and listen then, because they want to know more.
How bad did he stuff up, or whatever else it may be. So I think it's a fine move. I don't know that it's necessarily particularly good or bad. I don't know, I think they're saying that it's for, there are benefits around mental health.
I was going to say, Instagram did the same sort of thing when they started hiding the like count, so now you can choose if you see it or not. And I think it's in the same vein of, it's just not good for mental health, because you got to take care of your users, and if people are posting videos and are just getting bombarded with dislikes, that's not going to be good. It sort of helps with if you've got nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all. So it's like, if you like it, give it a like, awesome. If you don't, move on. You don't have to emphasize that you don't like it.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
what
it's
I do.
positive.
I
Yeah.
avoid unless the person in that video, the content is particularly horrible,
Hmm.
I won't react negatively to it. Like if it's someone genuinely expressing their opinion, and it's not like, just horrible.
Yeah.
If you're not a bad person, you're not going to get a dislike. But
But
if
then
you've
you've
got good
got,
content, you're going to get a like.
yeah, and you've got reporting features for the purpose of it. If it's
If
particularly
it's that bad, yeah,
horrible, you've got that
100%.
sort of service there. Mm.
Yeah. I haven't seen any numbers around whether mental health, or there have been mental health improvements when Instagram removed the functionality.
I feel better
Um,
personally. Just
okay.
from sort of my perspective, when I scroll through Instagram, I think I used to look at the like count a lot and I didn't realize. I've removed them now, so now I'll just see if there's somebody I follow that's liked another account's post. I'll see that person and I'll see and others. And for me, I'm like, oh, cool. I just look at the photo, I look at video, and I go, yeah, this is cool. Rather than comparing and sort of saying, oh, they got this many likes, or last time they had this many likes. What's happened? Do people not like this anymore? All those sort of questions that pop up. I think I've noticed myself just being less focused on the likes now.
Okay.
So it's been a
Well,
positive shift in my personal sphere.
yeah, I haven't noticed a difference, so I would say it's had a positive impact 100% of the time, according to our polling so far.
Perfect.
All right, exactly, absolutely perfect. On to the next topic, which is Facebook no longer allowing advertisers to target political beliefs, religion, sexual orientation, and I'm sure there are other things in there. Um,
Hmm.
I think it's crazy that they allowed it in the first place.
Yes, that's the reason I wanted to put this in here. I saw the title and I went, I mean, I'm in the space. I'm familiar enough with advertising and social media advertising and things. I was shocked when I saw that you could target on those things because surely that opens up to so many different levels of discrimination and, you know, abusing minorities or just taking advantage of people. It just seems absolutely insane to me. Ugh.
Yeah, I can't believe it. But again, this is just another reflection of how much information these companies have.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I think it's awesome that they removed it in the first, like, altogether. Um, but then again, I also wonder, as like we have access to the general advertising tools that Facebook provides, but I wonder how much of this would be reserved for sort of really higher tier customers of certain descriptions or ad spends. It sort of reminds me of the completely different, but the stock market. There's, as it turns out, there are systematic things in place that benefit the institutions that um, buy and trade stocks, right? Um, and it's stuff like, if Kelsey is a company and Jermaine is an individual, Kelsey would get information 24 hours in advance that Jermaine has to get. Jermaine only gets a day later or a week later. And those are institutional, like, systematic things that have been set up to work in that way,
Hmm.
which seems completely counterintuitive, because that is clearly and that means that, Kelsey Corp, who does billions of dollars in trade, hears in advance that this stock is going to go down and can sell that stock, like, before it reaches the retail market. And then Jermaine individual sees that 24 hours later, loses a bunch of money, you know destroys his life, or whatever
Mm.
else it may be. So I wonder how much of this Facebook's going to reserve, and it'll be hidden away in such a way that we won't know anything until something comes out saying, oh, as it turns out, Google could advertise through Facebook and get all this XYZ info, or a certain political party could get XYZ info, because they've still got this information, and I'm 100% that they're synthesizing all this information in ways that they're not presenting to us. But at least they're minimizing the number of people who can use or target all these very very minute levels of detail that I just, yeah, it's scary.
Mm.
Anyway, so on to something, well, I don't know whether you'd call it more positive, but I was just reading up about Coca Cola. They've unveiled a new marketing model, um, and I wanted to chat about what we can learn and what we can take from that. Because Coca Cola is, I don't know, have you seen their new cans, Kelsey?
Yeah, I was just having a look. I think I had noticed there were some new cans recently with the larger logo.
And
Is
we
that?
talked about, yeah, the larger logo, and was it Real Magic? I think it was
Yeah, the ad
um,
campaign.
that campaign. Yeah, so that was their first new like global branding platform since 2016,
Was that the Share a
and
Coke campaign, that one? 2016?
probably
Hmm.
probably was it wasn't it older than that? Share a Coke?
I feel
I
like it
might be
was before that,
mistaken.
but that is also
But it was
five
probably not
years
a
ago.
global. Yeah, but it may not have been a global platform at that point. It might have been like
Yeah.
a to the Australian market, for example, because I
Mm.
reckon it was definitely an Aussie thing first. Because I remember seeing a lot of Aussie terms like share a Coke with, and they were very Aussie,
Yeah.
at least initially. But what they've done now is they've talked about changing how they change. So Coca Cola is interesting, right? Because they've got a product that hasn't really changed. Yes, they've experimented with different types, like different SKUs with no sugar and zero, which I still don't understand the difference between.
Yeah.
I do, but they're still weird, I think. But what they're now trying to do, and so they keep pushing this boundary, right? Like Coke, McDonald's, even the classics like Nike, like their core product offering hasn't really changed. At the end of the day, it's the same thing, and day in day out, it's going to be the same thing, and anyone else can effectively like deliver the same thing. So what they rely on to keep going and keep dominating their market is good marketing,
Hmm.
because you remove the marketing and it's just a commodity product. But what they've talked about is looking at, and their model is looking at converting from singular separate sort of experiences with the Coca-Cola brand to a cohesive approach where you just have like a Coca-Cola experience across all your various touch points. Now, we call this all sorts of different things, but I think as small businesses as well as medium businesses, if you're listening to this, people often just market on Facebook, and they just think about, okay, what can the Facebook ads look like, when Coca-Cola is taking an approach that is not easy to execute, but I would say it's easier when you're smaller. But they're taking an approach where all touch points have a similar language, so and also sort of diversifying your platforms. And it doesn't mean that you need to spend more money. Obviously, it's easy for Coca-Cola because money probably wouldn't be a problem for them. I think they've got 4 or 5 of the world's biggest marketing agencies involved, like basically the who's who, which
Yeah.
which they can afford. But anyone listening at a smaller scale can still do the same thing. You just got to be smart with it all. Like use retargeting, use the tools available to sort of create an experience that is consistent across different platforms, rather than just putting your eggs in one basket, or rather than just sending one message through one channel. They're also talking about the fact that they can really make use of all the data that's out there, all the real-time information that they receive. Now, last week I mentioned that I bought a website. I think it was last week or the week before.
Hmm.
And one thing that I've been doing at that is we get real-time information. Like I know today versus tomorrow versus the next day how many visitors are coming through, how many pages they're looking at, how much ad revenue is being generated. And that's at such a small scale, but Coca-Cola is doing it at a bigger scale. It's just again a reminder to say, look at those things and learn how to tweak. So there was a time when we'd have to wait a week for that previous information. In fact, one of the platforms that I use on that website has an up to 7-day delay. But I can still use, if you're smart about it, you can use the tools that have real-time feedback to really optimize how you're doing what you're doing and how you're delivering that information. So, um, yeah, that's that. I just wanted to mention that and sort of look at that. As you go out there and um, when you hear Coca-Cola ads and when you see Coca-Cola cans, just think about those various touch points and when you see it, is it in a bus shelter and then does it pop up on your phone, or how is that happening, and how can you potentially apply that to your business as well? Um, does that all sort of make sense?
Yeah, I think so. It's just a classic lesson of looking at the larger companies, seeing what they're doing, and trying to apply it in a smaller scale. It's the easiest way to figure out how to do your business in a good way that's proven, and yeah, just testing out different things without needing to come up with all your own strategies, really.
Yeah, exactly. And then on to our second last um, topic for the week. Australia named the most active online retail market in the world. As of November 2021, Australians are now the world's most active online shoppers, with over 48% of us spending more time online this year. That is,
That's an astounding stat to me.
yeah,
Like at first glance, I guess that seems really odd because for me, we've got such slow delivery times. We're so far from things, and shipping costs so much when you're buying from international a lot of the time. So it doesn't really make sense. But then I guess at the same time, because we're so disconnected, getting things into stores in Australia is probably not like it's not as accessible as it would be in the US or the UK or other markets. So then we have to go online to buy all of these different things we might be seeing online. So I do see both sides, but it just seems such a crazy stat still.
yeah. I mean, we something like, what is it, 62% of Australians search for new products or services online, which is the highest in the world, and there's a global average of 55%, which doesn't sound like a lot, but thinking about it from the point of view that these are averages, which means that there are going to be extremes that sort of adjust, that cause these numbers to seem close together. I would say it's quite crazy, and more than half of Australians prefer to shop online using desktop over apps, and mobile, which
Yeah, I definitely prefer
doesn't
desktop
surprise me.
desktop shopping. I find that the experience in apps and on your web browser on your phone is just nowhere near the same. It's really frustrating to go through a lot of the time.
Yeah. And some interesting other takeaways as well. Gen Z reported that um, 40% make purchases via social media. So they're the most likely age group to purchase a product via social media, which doesn't surprise me. Um, the most frustrating part of online shopping was slow loading times, poor search, unappealing visuals, and just bad formatting on mobile devices. Again, just a reminder, like, you need to think about not just how good something looks, but how fast it loads, and
Hmm.
just making search better. Um, and yeah, it doesn't surprise me again that the most important factors when shopping online were fast shipping, and an easy to navigate website or an app. Um, Interestingly, that there's people looking for more and more personalized content, and advice when shopping. So I think there's still very much room. I've seen a decrease in chatbots out there. Well, not chatbots, chat like support or chat customer service solutions. Chatbots are everywhere. I hate them.
Hmm.
Um, but Facebook Messenger's chat functionality is very easy to integrate. It means that you don't have to install, work on a different platform. You just use the Facebook app, which is pretty handy. So yeah, interesting data, but 40% of Australians report online shopping at least once a month. I wonder if this includes groceries, because I've started, on a weekly
Mm.
basis now. I buy my groceries online and just go
Yeah,
pick
I
it up.
mean, It definitely picked up during COVID lockdowns for sure, because trying to get any kind of click and collect or online orders was impossible. You had to book at least like a week or two in advance, and that was the max you could actually book in advance. So I know that was definitely a thing. I don't know. It's an interesting stat. Mm.
Yeah, it's I don't know whether we should be proud of it or not so proud, but
Yeah, I'd be really interested to know a lot of the actual factors that go into how we're at that figure. What are the real, I guess, decisions behind people choosing to online shop or not, and what other countries are doing? Do they just have better supply chains and better access in store? I'd be really interested to know that kind of information, I think, and I don't think it's in that article, unfortunately.
no, it's not in there, but something that we can look into.
Hmm.
So that's about it in terms of the main topics, and we've got some announcements from our end to make. Kelsey, you've got something to say?
Yeah, I am finishing up with Future Theory and therefore also the Future Tribe show in about 2 weeks. So, unfortunately, saying goodbye to everyone on the podcast and the team here at Future Theory. So, pretty sad to go, but excited for what's ahead as well.
Yeah, it's been awesome working with you, Kelsey. So, and having you as a host and sort of well, you started as a guest or what more than 12 months ago.
Yeah.
Still remember you sort of freaking out a little bit about it all, but
Yes.
I'd like to think that you come across as a lot more comfortable, at least, whether you feel that way or not.
Yeah. To be safe.
TBC. So, yeah, with that, I think next week's episode's going to be the last episode, and the show slash podcast is going to take a bit of a break as well while we change up a few things. Don't want to, I guess, announce too much on in terms of those changes that we have in mind, but we've got a few additions with the move to a space with the studio as well. There's things that we can do now that we couldn't do before, so there's a few changes to look out for there. We will probably be back in the new year, is what we're sort of working on, but as an extension of sort of Kelsey finishing up, we're taking the opportunity to try and actually find a few new people. So go to futuretheory.co/jobs. They'll be on there very soon, depending on what time the episode goes out and you hear the news and how quickly we move on our end. But so if you know anyone who we'll be hiring for a replacement for Kelsey, so someone to help with our digital communications, digital comms and marketing, someone to help with our design or digital design and graphic design as well, and a WordPress developer. So we'll have a lot more info at that link. We'll include the link in the description as well. But if you are someone who'd be interested in working with us, or if you know someone who'd be interested in working with us, please let them know. It's an interesting time of every company's, I think, life, when you've got to sort of say goodbye to staff and say hello to new staff, but it also is exciting because we get to hire new people who come with new ideas and all sorts of fun new things. So I think it'll be good, and now that in Canberra we don't have to wear masks indoors, we can actually meet with people eventually rather than having to work and hire someone without ever seeing them in person.
Yeah, the old video call interview. Yeah.
I was not looking forward to it, and I'm just I'm glad that things have sort of changed a little bit for us. So
Yeah.
on that somewhat sad news, that's the end of this week's episode. Like I said, we've got episode 82 next week, and then we're probably going to go on a bit of a break, but we'll keep you all posted on that. Thanks for listening.
And see you guys all next week.